we talked to you about 6 weeks ago. We were talking about who should you fight. We threw out some names. In the end, was it the organization that gave you Yoel Romero, or did they actually let you choose? I mean, you have some clout in the sport.
How long ago did we speak again?
6 weeks, 8 weeks. We were kind of tossing around some names.
At some point it was Jacare. I thought it was going to be Jacare, and then they switched it randomly to Romero, and then that was it. Yeah, there was no questions. Obviously I was going to fight one of the top guys. It didn't matter which guy it was going to be, but it ended up being Romero. Yeah, it had nothing to do with me. It was whoever they offered, I was going to take.
I thought about that, and a lot of fighters are proud about the fact that they take whoever they are given. But, in boxing, a lot of times the big stars, they choose their opponents. Have you ever chosen an opponent?
No, never chosen an opponent. Never been to that position. The thing is, you become champion, and then it's pretty much the number one contender was the guy who'd you be fighting. And for me, it was always like a legend, so it wasn't like I was having a no-name guy. Luke was probably the least known guy I was going to fight, but it was the number one contender, so there was no questions really ever.
Wrestlers are proud athletes of their backgrounds, and I know a lot of times just conversations alone, whether it's in the gym or outside the gym, can become very competitive. I'm sure you would concede Yoel Romero's taken his wrestling to a higher level than you have, but MMA wrestling, that's a different animal. To me, it appears in watching previous fights, you definitely are one of the best at using your wrestling combined with, your jiu-jitsu game. And I think one has to give you that check mark going into this fight as far as MMA wrestling versus Yoel Romero.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. Romero, he's definitely got some good wrestling, and he was very accomplished, one of the most accomplished wrestlers to, I think, be in the UFC. And his MMA wrestling is not bad, but, I think he struggles with getting tired. So I think he kind of might avoid wrestling and would rather just try to knock people out. There's less energy spent with that, less danger. It's a scary thing to get tired in a fight. So, I don't know. We'll find out who has better MMA wrestling on the 12th, sure.
When I think of Madison Square Garden, and I come from the perspective of a kid that grew up in Australia, for me, my memory of Madison Square Garden, when I think about it, it's WrestleMania 1. Mm-hmm. That was for me, Hulk Hogan and Rowdy Roddy Piper and Muhammad Ali and Liberace all being there. That was Madison Square Garden for me. When you think of Madison Square Garden, a nostalgic moment you attach to that arena, what's the moment you think of? What's the event you think of that you attach to Madison Square Garden?
For me, I mean, my first experience being there was the circus. So I think circus, and then the next thing I think about is the Rangers games, even though I'm not a Rangers fan. And then I think about old school boxing fights, that were there. I know there's a lot of history.